What a wild, wild win for the Indiana Pacers, who go into LA and escape is a stretch, but get out of there with a toughly earned, let's say, 119-112 win. I'm Tony East. I cover the Pacers for Forbes and Locked On Pacers, and oh man, the Pacers trade deadline actually was longer than the rest of the teams. They traded their fan sanity for a win on Thursday night in LA, and in a crazy game. Clippers looked like this was going to be a blowout. The Pacers have not been playing well of late. They needed crunch time to beat the Hawks at home, and the Hawks had lost 7 in a row. They needed a perfect finish in Utah to beat the lowly Jazz, and then they got throttled by the Blazers. So when this game started the way it did, which was all Clippers, they made 10 threes in the first quarter. They were up 42-22 at the end of that period. They hit a 2 to go up by 22, doubling up the Pacers 13 minutes into the game. I thought, oh man, the Clippers are pretty good. Kawhi looked great at times in this game. Harden was rolling. Norm Powell was hitting shots. Pacers didn't have it early. I thought this is over, right? With no disbelief in the Pacers and what they've done this year, their last couple games haven't looked particularly good, right? This one's over. Psych, said the Pacers in their crummy start to this basketball game, because they flipped the game on its head in the second quarter. They scored 42 of their own in that quarter. 2 different, I believe, 15-0 runs in one quarter of a game is insane. They defended a little better than the Clippers did in the first quarter, so they only allowed 19, and they were winning at halftime. Then they had a bad third quarter and a great fourth quarter, including that stretch I described earlier, kind of, where they escape late. They were losing for much of the fourth. Tyrese Halliburton, not quite in there. They go down 4 as crunch time starts. The Clippers have the momentum. Kawhi is just cooking. He hits a 3 to put the Clippers up 5 with 4:30 to go. And then the voodoo happens with about 4 minutes left. Obi Toppin loses the ball deep left wing, and just happens to come up with it in a scramble that left the lane wide open, as the Clippers were kind of expecting other players to help or someone else to recover to the play. He dunked, and then the Pacers were just terrific the rest of the way. After a Derrick Jones basket, they got a Siakam 3 that Voodoo bounced in, then a Halliburton 3 after a Thomas Bryant block, then a Halliburton steal into a Halliburton layup, then a great defensive possession to stop Derrick Jones at the rim, which eventually led to Ben Mathurin getting 2 free throws. That run of 10-0 changed the game. They were down 5 with 3:31 to go. They were really with 3:12 to go. That 10-0 run took them a minute and 20 seconds, basically, and it even became a much bigger run than that. The Clippers didn't score until they were down by 9 with 53 seconds left. That close was sensational. They got stops on Derrick Jones. They forced a Zubac turnover. Norm Powell missed. James Harden had an embarrassing turnover. I mean, they couldn't get the ball to the right guys, but they kept turning it over late, and the Pacers took advantage every single time. They had to play great late. They were not winning for much of the fourth quarter until Halliburton hit a 3 with 2:44 to go. But they were perfect on the floor down the stretch of this game. They had to be, given the margin of error that they gave themselves, and they absolutely were. Mathurin, Halliburton, and Siakam were all awesome down the stretch of this game. And Thomas Bryant came up pretty big too in the rebounding and defense department. I thought his game will go underrated, and it probably should. He had some moments in this one, but Miles Turner hurt very early. Miles Turner was 0 for 4, less than 6 minutes in, gets smoked in the face by Ben Mathurin. He's bleeding. He's fallen down on his way to the bench. He has to leave the game for a concussion protocol. So Thomas Bryant plays 28 minutes in this one, and he didn't play great in terms of efficiency. He was 4 for 10, but he made 2 threes. He had 10 rebounds and 4 assists. Did Thomas Bryant. He was big late as well. He was big late in Utah also. Another road game the Pacers very recently played where their perfect close got it done. So very wild game, an insane number of runs for both teams. If you go to the game chart on NBA.com, you'll see big Clippers run, big Pacers run, Clippers run, huge Pacers run, big Clippers run, and then closes with a big Pacers run. And they were not like 7-0 spurts here and there. They were like 15-0, 10-0, 12. It was just nuts how much this game ebbed and flowed. But the Pacers found the right gears at the right time. Siakam was exceptional, 33 points and 11 rebounds. He had 30 points on, I believe, 13 shot attempts in the third quarter of this game. He just feasts in LA. It's his place, and they couldn't stop him. They literally could not stop him. I mean, Kawhi should be the answer to this, right? Or Derrick Jones Jr. should be the answer to this, but you look at the Clippers roster, they have guys that in my head are like, oh yeah, that guy could be someone you put on Pascal, because a lot of these games where Pascal's really good and is the Pacers leader in shots by a lot, it's because the other team doesn't have someone that makes sense to put on Siakam. The Clippers do. They have a couple guys who make sense, but he still got a bunch of early steals in the post. He made 5 threes. He was great on the glass. He never turned it over. 2 steals. Just phenomenal. Ben Mathurin was phenomenal to me as well. He was 8 for 13, and he only missed 1 2-point shot. He took 12 free throws on his way to 25 points, 4 assists, 6 rebounds, no turnovers. He was really good handling it in the lane. Tyrese Halliburton came alive late to get to 14 and 8 with 4 steals after a very slow start. It took him till almost halftime to score, and he only had the 2 points then. But between that, Ben Shepherd was awesome early. He had 10 halftime points. And all the stuff I just said, the Pacers found a way to sneak out of that game with the win, and the stat that will describe it the most, and I bet the coaches point to, is points off turnovers. 32 points for the Pacers off the Clippers' 19 turnovers. 7 points for the Clippers off of the Pacers' 7 turnovers. Not only is that turnover gap huge, but the execution off of them, major advantage Pacers. Their transition offense was terrific in this game. Unique day for this post-game video, because normally I would make it 8 minutes of talking about the game, but today I'm going to drag in another thing, which is the Pacers made a trade earlier in the day. It did not merit its own video, I don't think, on this channel at least. I did do a podcast about it with Derek Kramer, but they did make a trade. It was extremely small. James Wiseman, their reserve center, they signed in the offseason, the expectation being that he would be their third-string center this year. Tore his Achilles 6 minutes into his season. Just feel awful for the kid. Terrible that his season went this way. Regardless, he was eating up dead money on the Pacers cap, and they were so close to the tax that finding a way to get off of him for as cheap as possible made sense for them to do at the trade deadline. I talked about that in detail in a couple places. Well, that's what they did. They used cash considerations with his contract so that the Toronto Raptors would have the money to pay him and take him in. The Toronto Raptors did take James Wiseman. They sent back a top 55 protected 2026 second rounder. So unless the Raptors have a top 5 record next season, the Pacers get nothing from this trade. All they get is financial flexibility, which they need. They can now, if they want, sign guys to 10 days. They could convert a 2-way contract. They could just sign a center. They could be active in the buyout market if they want. That flexibility is really important for them. It helps them get away from the tax if any bonuses happen to hit that they have in some contracts of their players. They didn't make any moves that alter their rotation or really make the team significantly better, but if they add someone of note, maybe a movement shooter or another center with that extra roster spot, then that trade will look savvy. They found a way to, with minimal assets, give their team a chance to be better. And that's good business, but not worth more than 2 minutes that you just got from me. Pacers win again. They're 29-21. They're not playing great, but they've won 3 of their last 4 somehow. We'll have much more on this game on Locked On Pacers if you want to check me out there.